So I saw a picture of me that I took 7 years ago, and it was kind of one of those IDs that they take of you, and you could just tell by the face that back then I was very sad and in a much darker place, kind of angry place in life, and it just got me thinking because now I'm in a much happier, grateful place. And it got me to thinking as to why that was, bring some hope to some of you guys, and just give a kind of story about what changed and what's been different. So I'm not going to go into a 45-minute video on this because no one's going to watch that. But I would say back then, like 7, 8 years ago, it was a tough time for me for many reasons. I think I didn't feel heard or really listened to authentically, um, especially during the moment that picture was taken. I think, especially at that moment, I was definitely not feeling heard or understood. My parents definitely just wanted me to take that ID photo, and they didn't care how I was feeling. And I definitely felt pressured at the time to go after a certain career path, which was to become a doctor. Now, since then, my parents are a lot more open, a lot more understanding, and they want me to pursue whatever passions I have. And I've been fortunate enough to pursue my passion of digital marketing, not just through this hobby of this YouTube channel, but through a real career in that industry. Um, at the same time, I wanted to tell you about why I was that way, and how at that time it was sometimes hard to even see that I could ever change away from this. Now, I'm not saying I'm some super successful person, but that's another thing that you need to take into account. You don't need to be a millionaire with all this jewelry on you, with a fancy car, to be happy, fulfilled, and in a much better state. So let's dive into it. Let's talk about exactly why I felt there was no hope and it ended up changing. So at the time, the future seemed bleak, and especially when you're that young, you just assume this is it, this is my life, and this is basically how it's gonna go, and it just felt like there was maybe no escape and few options. And at the time, also, I just didn't feel really good about other areas of my life because they weren't performing great. I struggled with making friends, um, and I had a lot of stress and expectations from parents about my performance in school and extracurriculars outside of school. I was spending a lot of time studying for the SAT and starting to really get into a lot of other activities that took up a lot of time. And I was expected to perform. One of those was competitive piano. And if you know anything about that world, it is a crazy world where a lot of Asian students compete at a very high level, and the level of practice and dedication and discipline required is just it's almost unreasonable to an extent. I mean, we're talking a lot of adult level practice and dedication, and as you could imagine, the level of competition amongst other students got very intense. And so, with all those pressures, it just seemed like I was in a bad place. So, what's the too long didn't read? How did I transition over to where I am now? I think, for one, it took a long time, and it took a lot of struggles and moments of despair. There's definitely moments, sometimes months, where I felt really like this wasn't changing. But for one, I never gave up. And two, I always had hope. There came a point where I told myself, in a very heartfelt way, no matter how bad things get, or no matter how hopeless it seems, I'm going to find a way to do what I want, enjoy my life, and pursue what I want, even if it required putting in hard work or whatever else. And even if it seemed like I was doomed to a future of getting a job I didn't like, whether that was in medicine or if I couldn't become a doctor because I wasn't skilled enough, in some kind of depressing job as a science researcher making a modest income, and I just pictured, I had that vision of picturing myself scientific researcher, modest income, hated my job, and then went home to eat some frozen dinner. And so I just told myself I got to do whatever I can. And so with lots of perseverance, research, work, and finding and researching all these other career paths and learning what did I needed to do to get there, I've been slowly, and I'm still crawling, but slowly crawling towards what I want to do. I'm nowhere close to my dream, which is wealthy but also happy inside, tons of happy relationships, freedom of income and location, and all this other stuff. But I'm moving much more in that direction every day, and I've been doing what I can. Even if you're not good at those things, you can practice, you can get better, and you can do what you can with what you got. I'll be the first to admit that socially, I am not that great. And I'll come across awkward, and sometimes I'll fall flat on my face in social gatherings and when I try to make friends because I'm shy and all this other stuff. But over time, I get better. And even though I fall flat on my face, or that person, maybe some people don't open up to me for whatever reason, on occasion, I'll click with someone. And, I would go to these activities, and lo and behold, all of a sudden, after all these years, I have some solid friendships. Not a lot of them, but it's not about the quantity, it's the quality. I have a lot of friendly acquaintances, and then I have a deeper core group of, a small handful, maybe you can argue less than 5, but a small handful of deep, strong relationships with people that I've forged over the years, trying out different activities and hobbies and gatherings until I found something that stuck. And I learned, I researched what makes people happy, what makes people fulfilled. And I started to invest more in those things: relationships, friendships, giving back, the small things, gratitude. And that helped me kind of not get distracted and not get pulled down by all the things I thought would make me unhappy or did make me unhappy because I felt I needed them. But as I researched and I learned and I saw all these celebrities or successful people who had the money, who had the fame, who were still unhappy. And I'm not saying all of them, some of them are very happy, but I found out that if you don't have that core sustainability, that internal compass that makes you happy, regardless of the money, the fame, materialistic things, then even if you get those things, you won't be happy. And so, I've learned a lot, and I've understood a lot more about passion, about happiness over the years, and that's really helped me kind of claw my way towards a better place. I've clawed my way and worked to a better place with my family, as have they worked a better way to me, and with my career, my own happiness, my own relationships. And I would say I'm definitely not there yet. I'm not making millions or even multiple 6 figures or any of that. I'm not killing it, but you don't need to be happy, to be fulfilled, and so forth. And to see like where I went and where I am now and where I still need to go, I feel optimistic. And I want to get to a point like Will Smith. It's not about the money or fame for him with this specific point. It's about the fact that he has so much energy. He's always smiling and happy, and he brings that positive energy to everyone he sees. And that's where I want to get to. And he's just thrilled with his life. He's thrilled with what he does for a living. He's thrilled with who he interacts with, how he conducts himself. And that's where I want to be. And it's not always about the money to get there. That helps, of course. Obviously, it helps if you're rich. I would love to have that as well. But when I see where I am, I'm very proud of where I've gone. And I would tell my younger self that it's possible. Don't give up hope. Look at where you were and look at where I am, and you can go a far way. And it's not the end of the world. And there's thousands of job titles out there, some of which you've never even considered or figured out exist. And you never know where you might fit in there. Maybe it's as a project manager or product manager or marketing operations individual or as a business development person or HR lead or whatever else. There's so many titles and functions that you can work in industries that you can put yourself in the world. And I'm still on that journey. And I've also learned you don't need this perfect job to be happy. There are plenty of people who, at that current point in time, maybe they're moving towards something that's better, maybe they're not, but they don't like all the parts of their job. Maybe they don't like 50, 80% of their job right now, but they're happy individuals. They make the most of it. And so I would tell my younger self, there's a lot of things that you expect or you assume that you need, and you're bringing your own unhappiness because of that. And that's not always necessary. So we're still on this journey. It's not always about that end destination, which we may not hit until 5, 10, 30, 20 years down the line. But we can make our best decisions to work towards them. And you just never know. You might stumble across something and boom, things start to click. And sometimes it takes a long time. I went through a lot of dark periods, dark months, dark years, where it would just seem hopeless. Or it just seemed like, I can't switch my major now, it's too late. Or I can't make that change. How would I would have to start from scratch. And sometimes that's okay. It's okay to start from scratch or switch or pivot. And there's a lot more opportunity out there than you figured. And through my research, through some of the courses I bought, and I've reviewed a lot of those courses, Dream Job by Ramit Sethi is one of them, I started to open my eyes. And sometimes it's not perfect. They're not going to just tell you or hand you this dream job and say, hey, you can do this now. Then you might find it and you might realize you need to recertify yourself. You need to retrain yourself. You need to learn, start from scratch and pivot. But maybe that's worth it. Maybe that passion is worth it. Other times you might realize, oh, maybe there is some hope for me. And so when you start to look at those areas of your life, your career, your personal life, your relationships, your health, your well-being, your purpose and fulfillment, your mission in life, all these things, you start to slowly crawl toward them. And many people do, whether they like it or not. And you start to say no to things that you wouldn't have otherwise, whether that's junk food, whether that's a job that's good money but you don't enjoy, or a job that's a dead end, whatever it is, and you start to move to it. And even though this YouTube is a hobby, as you can tell, I get a lot of fulfillment from helping others from it. And that's important to me. And that brings me happiness too. It's about that mission. And it might not be something that, for years now has paid me much, but to get those positive comments on how it's impacted others, that's worth it. It's worth the negative comments. It's worth only getting 34 views per video. And so that's it in a nutshell. And we'll see where my life leads. Hopefully it's positive. And thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and comment.